This is the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation.
The time is 8:45. This is the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. Here's the news edited and read by Ramesh Perez. First, the headlines. The multi-sector combined mechanism launched to ensure food security and nutrition. The foreign minister meets China's representative at the UNHRC. The operations of the western terminal of the Colombo Harbour will commence in 2024. The Department of Motor Traffic to extend the validity period of driving licenses. Sri Lanka declares September 19th a government holiday to mourn Queen Elizabeth II. The presidential advisor says a new location in line with the developing world will be provided for the youth to conduct protest activities. In international news, King Charles III meets crowds in Northern Ireland. In sports, the victorious Asian champions, Sri Lanka's netball and cricket teams return to Sri Lanka to a rapturous welcome. And now the local news in detail. The multi-sector mechanism to empower rural economic revitalization centers to ensure food security and nutrition was initiated under the patronage of President Ranil Wickremesinghe today. The President's Media Division said the vision of the food security program of the government is to ensure every citizen has access to enough food at a reasonable price to lead an active and healthy life at any given situation of the country. The government has initiated this program with the view of achieving dual objectives of ensuring that no citizen of the country should starve due to lack of food and no child should be a victim of malnutrition. The relevant mechanisms have been implemented through 7 committees, while the National Food Security and Nutrition Council will function under the chairmanship of the President. Ambassador Chen Zhou, permanent representative of China to the United Nations office at Geneva and other international organizations in Switzerland, met with Sri Lanka Foreign Minister Ali Sabri, who was in Geneva to attend the 51st session of the Human Rights Council. Ambassador Chen Zhou said that China and Sri Lanka have a long-standing tradition of friendship and the Chinese side sympathizes with the difficulties of Sri Lanka is currently facing. Foreign Minister Ali Sabri said that Sri Lanka and China have traditionally been friendly. The strategic cooperative partnership has been continuously consolidated and they have firmly supported each other on issues concerning the core interests and major concerns of both sides. Operation of the Western Terminal of Colombo Harbour will commence in 2024. A sum of $700 million have been spent on this project. The investors of the project, Colombo West International Terminal Company, states that they expect to complete the construction of the project in 2025. These details were disclosed at the progress review meeting held with the participation of Minister Nimal Siripala de Silva. This terminal can handle 1.6 million containers. It is also capable of handling large ships which can carry 2,400 containers. This news broadcast comes to you from the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation.
People's Bank Online Corporate Banking. Imagine business anywhere.
Continuing with more local news. Sri Lanka has declared Monday, the 19th of September, a day of mourning and granted a special holiday for all government institutions in view of the funeral of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. The Queen's state funeral will take place at Westminster Abbey in London on Monday. Queen Elizabeth II was Sri Lanka's head of state between 1952 and 1972. Meanwhile, President Ranil Wickremesinghe issued directives to the Ministry of Public Administration and Home Affairs to declare the 19th of September a day of mourning in view of passing away of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. The national flag will be flown at half-mast until the 19th at state offices. President Ranil Wickremesinghe will be travelling to the United Kingdom to attend the funeral. Presidential advisor Sagar Ratnakar said today a new location which is in line with the developing world will be provided for the youth to get on with their protest activities. He said a location adjacent to the floating market in Petta will be given to Aragale shortly. Mr. Ratnakar said the centre will have facilities for art exhibitions, literature festivals, IT technology and the facilities for conferring. He said this will also help to get a commercial value for the abilities and talents of the youth. He added that plans to develop this centre will be handed over to President Ranil Wickremesinghe soon. And that ends local news.
Imagine if you could maintain a firm hold of your operations from anywhere. People's Bank Online Corporate Banking. Imagine business anywhere.
The main news story is brought to you by Siddhalepa Vedamahatmya.
Moving on to the main news story. The Department of Motor Traffic has decided to extend the validity period of driving licenses issued for a period of 6 months to a period of 1 year. Accordingly, Department of Motor Traffic announced that the public should visit either the direct offices of the RMV or the Verahara office in order to extend the validity period of licenses. Upon visiting, the licenses issued for a period of 6 months will be granted an extension of up to 1 year. Meanwhile, the department said steps have been taken to issue driving license cards only to new license holders looking forward to going abroad. And that was the main news story.
The main news story was brought to you by Siddhalepa Vedamahatmya.
Moving on to Watch Night, the Ministry of Labour and Foreign Employment has introduced 3 telephone numbers for obtaining information, including a hotline number to refer to problems related to obtaining electric vehicle import permits. Accordingly, information can be obtained by making a phone call to Mr. Praboda Kagoda Arachi on the hotline number 0773 039 034 or 0112 368 175 or to the Senior Assistant Secretary, Control of the Ministry on 0112 582 447. The applications for obtaining the relevant vehicle import licenses have now been published on the websites of the Ministry of Labour and Foreign Employment. And that came to you in Watch Night. A bulletin of world news is next. Moving on to the world news headlines bulletin. King Charles III meets crowds in Northern Ireland. Dozens dead in overnight clashes between neighboring countries, Armenia and Azerbaijan. Looted coin worth $1 million returned to Israel after year-long hunt. Now the world news in detail. Thousands of people are continuing to file past the Queen's coffin at St. Giles Cathedral in Edinburgh after steady queues overnight. The Queen's coffin will remain at the cathedral until 1700 BST before beginning the journey to London. It will be taken to Buckingham Palace and then to Westminster Hall, where the Queen will lie in state for 4 days. Meanwhile, King Charles III and Camilla, the Queen consort, have arrived in Northern Ireland as part of a tour of the UK. They have been meeting crowds at Hillsborough Castle ahead of a meeting with political leaders. A national minute silence has meanwhile been announced from 8 p.m. on Sunday, the night before the Queen's funeral in Westminster Abbey. Dozens of soldiers have been killed in fighting between neighboring countries, Armenia and Azerbaijan. Armenia's Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan said 49 of its soldiers died in overnight clashes. The two countries have fought 2 wars and seen regular smaller clashes over the course of 3 decades. At the core of the dispute is the region of Nagorno-Karabakh. It is, according to internationally recognized borders, firmly a part of Azerbaijan, but is populated by ethnic Armenians. It took nearly 20 years of dogged detective work and a trail which crossed continents before the case of the missing $1 million relic could be closed. The cherished piece of history is a small silver coin rich in symbolism minted during a Jewish revolt nearly 2,000 years ago. Looted in Israel in 2002, it was eventually tracked down, seized, and is being returned to where it came from. The saga began when the Israel Antiquities Authority spent the next decade and a half trying to locate the coin, which passed through illicit antiquities markets in Israel, Jordan, and the UK. It was eventually exported to the US for sale at an auction in 2017. Back to the headlines of the world news. King Charles III meets crowds in Northern Ireland. Dozens dead in overnight clashes between neighboring countries, Armenia and Azerbaijan. And looted coin worth $1 million returned to Israel after years-long hunt. And that concludes World News. Moving on to development news. The Cabinet of Ministers has approved the allocation of $100 million through the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank for the Ministry of Health to procure essential medicines and supplies. In a statement, the Government Information Department said that the AIIB has agreed to provide the said amount by allotting $70 million through the Colombo Urban Regeneration Project and $30 million through the Reduction of Landslide Vulnerability by Mitigation Measures Project. The proposal was tabled by President Ranil Wickremesinghe in his capacity as the Minister of Finance, Economic Stabilization and National Policies. And that was Development News.
Sports News is brought to you by...
With many values that bind us beyond the transaction, we are Sampath Bank. We present your future.
Moving on to sports news. The victorious Asian champions, Sri Lanka's netball and cricket teams returned to Sri Lanka this morning and they were escorted to Colombo in a celebratory vehicle parade. Sports fans in their numbers were seen lined up on either side of the Colombo-Katunayake Road to cheer on their heroes. Meanwhile, in football, 3 Premier League matches have been postponed this weekend before the funeral of Queen Elizabeth II. Chelsea's home game with Liverpool and Leeds United trip to Manchester United have been called off. Brighton against Crystal Palace had already been called off because of rail strikes and remains postponed. The other league matches between 16th and 18th September will take place after football paused last weekend as a mark of respect following the Queen's death. The Queen's funeral will be held on Monday, the 19th of September. And that was Sports News.
The fastest way to earn the highest interest from NSB, now extended till the 30th of September just for you. Your short-term deposits receive an attractive interest rate of 20% in 3 months and 22% in 7 months. Visit a bank branch or a main postal office today. NSB, the only bank with 100% government guarantee.
Business News, sponsored by National Savings Bank, the safest place for your money.
In business news, the Sri Lanka Korea Business Council of the Ceylon Chamber of Commerce recently conducted a business opportunities and experience sharing interactive session to commemorate 45 years of diplomatic relations between the two countries. Noting the robust bilateral partnership in many areas including economic, trade, investment, labor, cultural and education cooperation, the chief guest, Ambassador of Republic of Korea in Sri Lanka, Santosh Wonchen-Jeong, said Korea looks forward to a renewed, rejuvenated and remarkable chapter of bilateral ties for the next 45 years. And that was Business News.
Business News, sponsored by...
The fastest way to earn the highest interest from NSB, now extended till the 30th of September just for you. Your short-term deposits receive an attractive interest rate of 20% in 3 months and 22% in 7 months. Visit a bank branch or a main postal office today. NSB, the only bank with 100% government guarantee.
Moving on to economic news. Data from the State Debt Office showed that Sri Lanka raised 48.7 billion rupees via treasury bonds at a weekly auction on Tuesday after calling bids for 75 billion rupees. Only 3.7 billion rupees of 1st June 2025 bonds were sold at 29.16% after calling bids for 30 billion rupees. All 45 billion rupees of 1st May 2031 bonds were sold at 29.96% after calling bids for the same amount. And that was economic news. The weather report is next. Moving on to the weather report, the Met Department says few showers will occur in the western and Sabaragama provinces and in the Kandy, Nuwara, Galle and Matara districts. Mainly fair weather will prevail elsewhere over the island. And that was the weather report. And to end this news broadcast, a recap of the main news headlines. The multi-sector combined mechanism launched to ensure food security and nutrition. The foreign minister meets China's representative at the UNHRC. The operations of the western terminal of the Colombo Harbour will commence in 2024. The Department of Motor Traffic to extend the validity period of driving licenses. Sri Lanka declares September 19th a government holiday to mourn Queen Elizabeth II. The presidential advisor says a new location in line with the developing world will be provided for the youth to conduct protest activities. In international news, King Charles III meets crowds in Northern Ireland. And in sports, the victorious Asian champions, Sri Lanka's netball and cricket teams, return to Sri Lanka to a rapturous welcome. And with that, we conclude this news broadcast from the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation.